Final round of CONCACAF World Cup qualifying has begun, and so far, a lot of ties mostly. Some good for Canada, some not as good. We'll discuss why on this week's edition of Waking Red Weekly, presented by Footy Talks, as well as get you set for tomorrow's matchup with El Salvador at BMO Field. In 15 minutes' time or so, we'll be joined by another recent transfer into the Canadian soccer media landscape. That is TSN's Matthew Scianitti. He's been on the Canada World Cup qualifying beat, so we'll go in depth on that with him. Toronto FC are also back this weekend, so we at least mentioned them once on this week's show. We aren't going to get fined, so that's good. But before we get into any of that, Michael Singh, Jeffrey P. Nesker, how's this week been going so far?
Long weekend, baby.
Yeah.
So relaxed. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I've been getting a lot of my positivity from U.S. men's national team Twitter. So, it's a unending font of Schadenfreude. Absolutely fantastic. I cannot recommend it enough. I think I shared an article with you guys on the WTR Slack chat last night. It was about 500 comments strong, and all of them were hilarious. If you get a chance, you should read it. It was pretty terrific.
Yeah. It just re-energized, man. Like I feel like with meaningful games actually happening at BMO Field, and honestly, it's a tempo that none of us have been privy to yet with this Canadian men's national team in the heart of World Cup qualifying, actually competing legitimately for a spot. I mean, that hasn't happened in any of our lifetimes, really. So just I'm trying to soak it all in. I think it honestly hasn't really hit yet just how the magnitude of these games and just the moment of these occasions. And like I said, it just overall that's just been re-energizing, not only for me as a journalist, but I feel like in general for everybody. All social media seems to be engaged. If you were at the game at BMO Field on Wednesday night, just fantastic atmosphere. Absolutely fantastic. You had fans from Honduras, which I didn't even know that many fans from Honduras were around this country. I mean, how did they cross the border?
No, man, Toronto's a diaspora, man. There's expats from every nation here, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was really evident there on what was it, Thursday night at BMO Field. So just like I said, it's a good time to be a Canadian national soccer team supporter.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I was there a little late, just coming in from Kitchener. There was a Maroon 5 concert, so the traffic was absolutely brutal. So I came into the stadium a little late, but just I was getting kind of emotional walking up and hearing like what the crowd sounded like for a Canada game, right? Because we're used to that for Toronto FC games now, but even for like a Toronto FC game, especially with the way things have gone this season, like there was just a buzz about that stadium that was incredible. Yeah. And I think Jeff actually made a good point. I wanted to circle back on that before I forgot about the U.S. national team Twitter reaction, because like Mike said, like this is newer to all of us. We haven't seen Canada play games like this, and after that 1-1 draw, it was kind of I knew it was a good result, but it's still a draw, so you weren't just like the most pumped. And then when you see the fans who have been there before in terms of the U.S. men's national team, like reacting the way they did to that result, you realized how big of a result that was for Canada and how kind of unexpected it was. So that was kind of where I was at with that. But let's start a bit with the Honduras game, I think. Going in order here, I guess. And obviously, I think it was a disappointment for Canada, but also a wake-up call. I mean, there was someone last week in the comments who I really wanted to shout out. I can't remember who it was, but someone saying, basically predicting exactly how this game would go, which is like, this isn't going to be easy for Canada.
Yeah, it was Bielsa's high press.
There you go. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, because he called me on it like pretty much the minute after the final whistle. So.
Yeah. Predicted exactly like, this is CONCACAF, and it was an absolute wake-up call for Canada, but I think good that wake-up call came in the first game, and now it seems like with the U.S. game, they are able to kind of learn that lesson quickly.
Yeah, what did you guys make of their performance against Honduras? Jeff, why don't you go first?
Screaming for an 8. I think if Oso had been in that game, we maybe would have won. And that's not a knock against the Tiba. It's just I hated that double pivot with Mustachio so much. I did not like it. I don't want to see it again. We've got depth in the midfield, so I don't think we have to roll it out again. I saw Atiba and Eustachio chasing the same balls too often. and I didn't like it. And it looked like there was a disconnect between who was playing further up the pitch and who was playing back. They kept switching. And then the other thing that I really couldn't stand, and I still don't quite understand what happened, was the switch with Fonzie and Tejan on the wings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll kind of build off what you were saying there with the midfield, I think. And John Herdman addressed this in the second half, bringing on Junior Hoylett, but I think they were missing like a number 10. Like they had the 2 8s in the middle in terms of Eustachio and Hutchinson, but they're missing that sort of hold up play right before they get to their striker. And I don't think neither David or Laren were capable of necessarily picking the right pass in that's part of the field, right? And when Junior Hoylett came on, it changed the game dramatically. They now had that option through the middle, and they weren't able to sort of exploit, the wings in the first half. And all of a sudden, there became enormous amounts of space on the wings because you had someone like a Hoylett who could occupy that space in the middle and then act as sort of like someone who could penetrate the midfield and then spray it out wide. And it worked. Like I felt like I tweeted this out too. There was too many like-minded players on the pitch, and Tejan Buchanan, Richie Larea, and Alphonso Davies trying to occupy the same space and play the same type of role. And I just feel like Honduras adjusted well. And, credit to Canada again for adjusting again and really taking it to Honduras in that second half. And, we're disappointed with just a single point, because the reality is, when you have expectations like this Canadian men's national team has, you need to pick up 3 points at home at BMO Field against a team like Honduras. So disappointed with a point, but overall their performance, like Mitch kind of put it out off the top, it's good that adversity came early on because they were able to bounce back. And, I think it's just onwards and upwards from here, hopefully.
Is Mustachio a Jeff original?
No, I thought Mustachio was you. Somebody mentioned Mustachio, and
okay. Well, I love that nickname for
no, it's amazing.
Putting that immediately into my vernacular. But
I honestly thought it was you. Okay. Well, it's a credit to you that I thought it was you, because that means that shows how witty I think you are.
There we go.
What was I going to say? I didn't like how. Honduras played a conca game, it was Charles. It was Chaz. There you go. There it was. Yeah. I thought, I've heard a lot of takes that they thought the refereeing at the Honduras game was up to scratch. I disagree. I think there was at least 3 or 4 examples of the most errant dives I've ever seen. Where I was sitting in section 117, I saw Honduran forwards flop at like a breeze. You know what I mean? Or strong language. And it was a stop-start game, the exact kind of game that Bielsa's high press predicted, and that I said wouldn't happen. So credit to him, and demerit points for me. But
Jeff, there was this play. There's this play it was the first half still, actually. Yeah. And Honduras took the lead. And I tweeted this out too, because I was actually dying in the press box, laughing at this play. Honduras took the lead. They had a free kick. They won a free kick. Literally, their own player. I don't know if I've ever seen this before, but their own player kicked the ball away on their own free kick, and then proceeded to walk over and get the same ball. In what world was that? To me, not time wasting. I feel like that part of the game was not enforced, and that is CONCACAF for you. It's just super frustrating when you go behind against a team like Honduras, who are just experts at CONCACAFing everything, and
absolutely
getting upper hand and sort of everything. And I think I don't know if the referee did a great job of sort of enforcing everything there on Thursday night, but I thought the refereeing against the US was a lot better, a lot tighter.
Yeah, I think that's the frustrating part for sure. Is I think the ref got the big calls right in the Honduras game, obviously. The Tejan penalty, it was debatable, but it probably was a penalty.
It's a penalty, in my opinion.
It's always the game management that frustrates you, right? It's the fact that teams keep getting rewarded for trying these kind of things in CONCACAF. They keep getting rewarded for all the time wasting. They keep getting rewarded for all the antics. And again, that's the wake up call for Canada. They're going to get this, and it's going to be, if it's that bad at BMO Field, let me tell you, it's not going to be any better when you're down in San Pedro Sula and there's no one
all
yelling
the stretchers,
all
the stretchers, all the bags of urine. Yeah, exactly.
So it's only going to get worse from here in that perspective. So again, it's good. I think that Canada got a huge dose of that early and now know better what to expect. So I think they actually replicated some of that against the United States in terms of, some of those antics that they actually used to their benefit in the US game, which was great. And that's what you want to see from Canada.
If you can't beat them, join them, man. I mean, it's an aspect of the game. To ignore it and to try to take the high road means you ain't going to Qatar. So do it. All the stretchers. Do you know what I mean? Because it's been proven that it's an advantage. So, it's time to start engaging. I mean, we're already doing it to quite a degree. I'm very impressed. Kava still needs minutes, and that's going to be some serious shenanigans. But I thought the herky jerky nature of the Honduras game really suited the opposition team. I agree with you. I think it's nice to get punched in the mouth early, because then you've got the rest of the fight to get back up, like the Rocky narrative and win the match. But, are we being way too positive about 2 points out of 6 on the table?
Let's get into that after. I think we have Matthew here. Actually, we can probably ask him that question to lead off. So let's bring Matthew on, and then we can circle back to that, because I do think that's a good topic to get into. But now joined by TSN's Matthew Scianitti. Thanks so much for joining us, Matthew.
Boys, good to see you.
Thank you, Matthew.
Yeah, well, let's get into, I guess, your thoughts then on those first 2 matches for Canada. And as Jeff mentioned, 2 points. One obviously away from home where it's a little more positive, and then the one at home that I think there's at least some hand wringing over. What have you been made of Canada so far?
If John Herdman, I maybe don't put all on Herdman, but maybe if there isn't that switch where all of a sudden Alphonso Davies is on the right and Tajon Buchanan's on the left, and it kind of ruined the momentum of that game in the first half against Honduras. That I don't say led to the penalty, but kind of led up before the penalty. We might be looking at 4 points. For the most part, the finishing I think has been the most disappointing thing. I think maybe it's the only criticism you can have of Jonathan David in the game against Honduras is that finishing. And early on, and he's very early in his career, but you see in some of the seasons he's had, especially last year with Lille, had kind of a slower start before he kind of works his way into the year. I'm not going to use that as the excuse, but it's just been little fine things. And you guys are talking about the dare I say, the shithousery of content.
You can say it.
No, it is. It's so true. And Herdman reflected on this moment, post game. I'm sure you guys heard where they're at halftime at BMO Field, and guys are like, okay, let's stop screwing around. We're not playing Suriname anymore. We're playing teams that they know how to play this CONCACAF style. There's stuff that's going to get, that they're going to go ahead and get away with, which is funny because when you think about the talent, the European talent that Canada has now, when you're playing Europe, that stuff doesn't fly. And then you got to come over here for international games, and all of a sudden it'd be the same in Commonwealth where you have to deal with all this shithousery. And it really is a mental thing. And I really, you guys brought up a great point in terms of Canada playing to that. I mean, I look at Richie Larea and what Richie has been doing in terms of having an attitude and having a bit of a bite to him and getting in people's faces, and that's what we need to do. And Mark Anthony Kaye doing the same thing.
Terrorizing people. Yep.
And that's and from the start, he's screaming the anthem out, and then he's screaming on the field, and it's a psychological warfare. People, this is what you have to. This is part of it. And I have been impressed with that U.S. game. I have to get this in because I've been saying it behind the scenes. I don't know what bloody game Arison was watching after the game where he's just like, oh yeah, they had one chance, they scored. I'm like, dude, it was an open game, and had Tajon Buchanan just squared that ball across the box, you guys probably would have lost. What are you talking about? So this is part of it. This is the psychological warfare, and it continues on tomorrow. I think given where the table is now, you have to beat El Salvador at BMO Field to stay above that. That for me, that the top 4 places, that's where the cut line is. Like, even if this team, I'm not putting the cart way before the horse, but even if this team were to get that 4th playoff place, it'd be a huge accomplishment. But that you have to keep in those top 4 places. You can't get behind that line at all, at any point in this process,
especially this early. Speaking about the U.S. psychological warfare, are you also enjoying the festival of Schadenfreude that is U.S. men's national team Twitter right now?
Well, I watched. You know what was even better was the YouTube channels. They do for some reason they think it's a good idea to put the Greg Berhalter's post-game press conference on YouTube, where the fans
didn't they kill the comments though? Didn't they turn those off?
Losing their mind. It's all his fault. We have all this talent. Why didn't we beat Canada like 29-0? It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's funny. Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead. No, please continue. I mean,
no. What I'm simply saying is, like, the United States, whatever people think of their talent, like, this is still a team that I remember Dwayne DeRozero telling me this many years ago. He's like, their infrastructure allows them to have a wider talent base, but when it's 1-for-1 with our guys against our best against their best, and we can give them our best shot. Like, it really pisses them off. Like, they don't run right over us. And it's funny. And I was watching that and just remembering Dwayne's comments from this is like 10 years ago, and just watching it and being like, yeah, they're pissed off that, like, they're not running over us anymore. Like, they can't. And it's now, bear in mind, I don't think Scott Kennedy had his best game.
No, he did not.
But overall, that was an excellent. I mean, as ties go for Canada in this part of the process, that was an excellent tie. And to watch Americans afterwards on their YouTube channel just lose their minds, I have no problem being biased here. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, me too. 100%. I love to see it. I mean, they won the Gold Cup less than 2 months ago, and they're calling for Berhalter's head if they don't beat Honduras on Wednesday. It's kind of hilarious, and I hope we never experience that level of swagger over here. I don't think culturally we're capable of it. I think we might get close, but I don't think we'll ever get that bad. Anyway, sorry, Mike. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries. And Matthew, you mentioned they're best against best. I got a question for you. Is Alphonso Davies the best player in CONCACAF right now?
If you watch the way that he terrorized both Honduras and the Americans on the left side, I was saying this to a colleague of mine, Paul Atfield, who works for Golden Mail, during the game. I was like, he's far and away the best player in CONCACAF. Like, it's not
easily
close. Like it's when you talk about world-class players, and it's going to be interesting today. I'm going to training, which is in about an hour and a half. And it'll be interesting to see if Alfonso is still there, and if Bayern Munich hasn't picked up the phone to John Herdman and said, "Okay, that was fun, but we'd like him to come back now. We've got RB Leipzig coming up in the Champions. The first match days of the Champions League, so you guys can have him back in October, but we need him now." And that'll be interesting. However, like, when he's on the field, it literally tilt. No matter what structure, what talent any team has, like, he just blows past guys. And it's not even like I remember we as a country, mind you, were worried that when we got to this stage that guys just be hacking at him and just like two-footed tackles. They can't even touch him. It's not even that's not even a concern because he's.
I think we lost his.
Lost your sound there, man.
Audio, we lost your sound there.
Got me?
Yeah, now we got you. Good stuff.
I just had a phone call coming in.
No worries.
What is so interesting is that if you see him in person now, his body is so much bigger in terms of, like, he's so much more muscular. He's so much faster, and he's only 21. Like, he still has growing to do.
Not even.
And it's an absolute credit to Bayern Munich. And, like, it's a credit to Bayern Munich and their strength and conditioning coaches. You know, we've all seen certainly what they've done to many players. You know, I think of Thomas Muller over his career, and he's gained strength and speed. But the fact is at this point, far and away, Alphonso Davies is the only world-class player in CONCACAF.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Well, there was a play early in the first half, I think, where Milan Borjan sent like a nothing ball forward, and all of a sudden you see Alphonso Davies coming from the left side of your screen and just closes down the U.S. defender. I think that was when Laren missed the early sitter. But yeah. I mean, that was just one of those things where it's like, okay, even if we get half chances here, like, Alphonso Davies' quality is going to shine through. But I did want to talk about another player that just moved to Europe, and you were obviously on this beat throughout the Tajon Buchanan transfer saga. Your thoughts on how that ended up, him going to Club Brugge, and just a pretty good location to start his European journey.
Yeah, there was some talk behind the scenes about teams like Augsburg as well in the Bundesliga, and I don't think he could have gone wrong either way. I mean, going to again, it's the Belgian first division, so I mean, it is still a European league with the opportunity to play in the Europa League and potentially the Champions League. And I think it's a lot better for him because Bruges is an established club rather than going to Augsburg, where I mean, I think that they got their butts kicked. I didn't see this, but I kind of in my periphery saw them get their butts kicked in the early first few rounds of the Bundesliga. I think he's great. I think Tajon is someone who we saw it in the Honduras game. It wasn't his best game, but against the Americans, when he feels kind of an intensity pickup and like he feels like he's got to raise his level for the moment. I mean, we see in that run that he just went right through the Americans on the right side and just put that ball through the box. Almost looked like he could have scored the same goal that he did against Mexico. I think he is someone who, as time goes on in Europe, he's going to develop really quickly because he's all about confidence. He's got swagger. He's got an attitude about him. And his story is, it's one of those stories maybe 10, 15 years ago where, you talk about, the Jonathan de Guzman's, the Owen Hargraves, the Asmir Begoviches, where he might have played for the Americans because he didn't get, as his side of the story is, having to go to Colorado and having to go through that side of the program and then going to Syracuse and then being scouted. But it's a real credit to what the men's national team is doing now in like heavy recruitment of guys and letting guys know that, hey, whatever happens in the past, you're an important part of what we're doing now. And he plays by and large so well for Canada, and his development, especially over the last few months, mirrors exactly Jonathan David in terms of David obviously coming from the more amateur side in Ottawa, but just skyrocketing. Mm-hmm. And I think he's gonna play so well in Belgium. And then I think right now he could play for one of the upper tier sides in Germany, but I would love to see someone like that. I'd love to see Tajon play for Borussia Dortmund in a couple of years. I just think he would thrive for one of the top sides in the Bundesliga. And that's kind of, I think, the players that we want, these fast, physical, incredibly athletic, great stamina, great work rate. That's the kind of player I think we can see now playing for Canada, because we can see it already in some of the guys who are playing for the team already. So Tajon deserves all his flowers on this one. It was a lot of work speaking to his agent, getting this done. And, from Bruce Arena, when myself and some early reporters put out the news that he had interest, 8, 9, 10 weeks ago, Bruce Arena being like, yeah, he's not going anywhere. It's not. to see his progression even in that time to a point where England's like, no, you can go, but, roll it back to it. Like, it just shows, again, it's another example of the quality of talent that's now in Canadian soccer, and hats off to Tajon. I mean, I think he's, having spoken to him just a couple of times and speaking to members of his family, he's a good kid, great dude, and he's really gonna grow into his own in Europe.
Fantastic.
Funny you mentioned that time period. I feel like his transfer fee jumped up a couple of figures over that period of time just because he was on fire, and he still is.
I texted his agent when they scored against Mexico, and I was like, cha-ching, like, that's. Yep. I mean, that's what happens, right? I mean, it's so weird, isn't it? Like to think that Canadians now can raise their stock, can raise their value by the way they're playing, and I can to go back to a previous point that you guys had mentioned, maybe the expectations of fans. I was sitting in the BMO Field press box, a press box I sat in 14 years ago when I started my career, and watching fans, just a terrible Toronto FC team, and watching, with all due respect to the guys who came before, really did the heavy digging. But to see fans now walking around with Canadian national team jerseys, walking around with Alphonso Davies jerseys, talking about Tajon Buchanan, talking about Jonathan David and Kyle Larin, people walking around with the Atiba Hutchinson Besiktas jerseys. Like this is what the change looks like. This is how it starts. And this is only just the early ripples of what's going to happen in 4.5 years. Like, I don't think anyone, I mean, you gentlemen obviously understand it, but in 4.5 years, where the trajectory of Canadian soccer is going, the men's side in particular, in 4.5 years before that World Cup that we're hosting, hopefully at a renovated BMO Field, with the talent that we're going to have there, where, you know, Alphonso Davies is going to be in and about his prime, or maybe just on the downward half of it, and Tajon Buchanan is going to be in his prime, and Jonathan David will be in his prime. I mean, it's enjoy these moments now. Like, you know, take notes now, because like we are now experiencing, I won't say a golden age yet. Got to get to a World Cup first, but
yeah, true.
Just a real summer and flowering in Canadian soccer.
Sold.
You almost answered my next question, which is what is the state of the CanSoc in the current CanSport media landscape, and are we doing everything right for the slow burn towards 2026, or should we be doing more?
Well, you know, it's funny. You know, those who know of my work will know that I covered Toronto FC many, many years ago, and then I had to, you know, I was told, I worked for the National Post, and my editor at the time told me, nobody cares, move on to the CFL. And I was like,
right.
Okay. But you know, I got the call 4 or 5 months ago from our producer saying, we're like, this has to happen now. We got to invest now. And to know that not just myself, but, you know, other, my fellow media members, you are investing in talking to player agents now, are talking to players and their families, their representatives on multiple levels, trying to build this infrastructure where it's not just, you know, we're trying to expand it out to more casual fans. And that's, you know, on my side, at least in terms of some of the features we've been doing to try to really get people excited about this team and kind of wink and nod and say, hey, everybody, like, the World Cup is coming here. Like, I mean, the 2022 is the goal right now, but the World Cup is going to be in your backyard very soon. And, you know, it's a spaceship that when it lands, it's going to be like unlike anything else. But right now, where we are, I think as we see this process play out, and as, you know, hopefully Canada stays in those top 4 spots, and as we get closer over the next 5 months to seeing if this country is actually going to get to its first World Cup since 1986, or Men's World Cup, it's going to be, I'm excited to see not just what we do at TSN, but what other media outlets do and the competition that raises, because that's what I want. I don't want it just to be One Soccer who does everything, or TSN that does everything, or Sportsnet. I want us all to be like, you know, start the drumbeat. And, you know, this was obviously the foundation laid by the women's team and what they did, in, you know, not just in Tokyo, but the World Cup here a few years ago. But the momentum is building. And what I'm enjoying seeing is the players are now getting it. And listen, and talking to John Herdman, you know, Herdman had said to me, listen, the goal here that we all want is you're going to have, you know, we're not going to play great. You're going to have tough opinions about the way we play and what we do. That's totally fine. But the fact is, the players are watching, and to see that the media is now investing more in them, not just raising their profile for the sake of dollars and cents, but raising their profile so that, as I mentioned, you see people wearing not just Alphonso Davies Bayern Munich jerseys, but Jonathan David Lille jerseys, Kyle Larin Besiktas jerseys. You know, you see people look at who is Scott Kennedy and what are Canadians doing in the second Bundesliga, and who are we still trying to go ahead and recruit to Canada? What's going on with Daniel Jebison? What's going on with, you know, a guy like Justin Smith, who just signed his first professional contract in Nice? You know, what's going on with, you know, is Fikayo Tomori, like, what's going on?
I was waiting.
But like, that's the thing, right? Like, that's like, what's going on with those situations? Like, that's exciting. Like, that's like, and I'm not trying to buy into the hype, and like, there are definitely things you can criticize about the play and some of the tactics in that Honduras game. That's fair. But to go ahead and be like, hey, you know what? It's no longer, you know, what's going on? Like Owen Hargraves and everyone just folding their shoulders about something that happened 20 years ago. Like, it's now, we now feel so much better about where we are with the men's program, not just about what we have now, but peeking over and saying, you know, what if Marcelo Flores comes in? Flores wants to play for wants to play for Canada. What if he does? What if he just chooses Canada over Mexico or England or Daniel Jebison? Like this is, you know, and the one thing that I could see us doing that you know, going back to the point about we don't want to get to where the States are. The fact is like, to have the depth the Americans might have, and to know that what our talent is doing is turning heads, that's a great place to be in. That's the place you want to be in. Yeah, and you want to be where the Americans are, where you're getting upset at, like, why don't we play this guy and this guy? And like, you want to be there, and we're in that honeymoon period now. But it's not a bad place to be.
Yeah.
So let me follow up quickly. What do we need to do on the women's side to take the maximum amount of advantage and keep the enthusiasm going post Tokyo? Is it an NWSL team immediately?
I've been fortunate to have a few conversations with Diana Matheson about this, and Diana is so smart, and she's I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here. She's certainly talking to people, various business people, and certain notable large sports organizations in and around Toronto. I mean, MLSE, if there's going to be any investment in the women's game at a professional level, it's going to have to happen a partnership with Major League Sports Entertainment. I think everyone understands that. But yeah, I think we have to get to a point where, and I was saying this to somebody yesterday, Shireen Ahmed does the Burn It All Down podcast. She's a good friend of mine, and we were just discussing this yesterday. When you really look at it and you kind of understand the limited budget that Canada Soccer works with and everything that Canada Soccer has done on the women's side, and you watch what they achieved in Tokyo, this is my opinion, and I don't mind saying that might be, given the context, one of the greatest achievements by a Canadian team in any sport. Like, wow, with the budgets they have to deal with, the traveling that they have to deal with, everything that the women's team has had to deal with, not just during Tokyo but before that. Yeah. Like it's a massive achievement. It's a historic achievement, and it begs more investment. It put the money into it, because, guys, the two most successful coaches in recent Canadian history both coached the women's program. I mean, Bev Priestman, obviously, but John Herdman. There is a clear line you can draw from the success of the women's team to the success of the men's program. The people, the physio staff, the backroom staff that worked on the women's team, they're working on the men's team right now. Like, it's so that investment, one clearly benefits the other, but I think we want to get to a point where that shouldn't be the case, where they can be their own entities and succeed on their own. But there has to be a professional team. I know that there were, some online grassroots movements with the NWSL Toronto account, and they had accounts from across the country. And speaking to some of those people in direct messages and what they're trying to do, I just want someone to step up. I'll say it. I cover the league, and I've covered the league for 10 years. If we can invest in Canadian football, which is certainly a staple in the country, and believe me, I was Labor Day Classic yesterday in Hamilton, and it's fantastic, and I love it. But if we can invest in that league, we can invest in women's soccer and women's hockey. There is no argument for me. Like, come on, like if people are like, oh yeah, if we have money for 9 teams in the Canadian Football League, we've got money to invest in the women's league, and I'm hoping seeing little things like Uninterrupted partnering with Christine Sinclair, seeing the rising profile of someone like Janine Becky, that to me is like, hey, that's what we want to be seeing. But I go back to the point about Diana Matheson, going to people like that, smart people who've been involved in the women's program. Diana's currently finishing a Queen's MBA, and incredibly intelligent, saying to the women who've been part of the process to be like, listen, we're now going to be in charge of the process, and we want to lead the process. That to me is exactly the steps we should be taking. Onward and upward.
Well
I love it.
The fact they accomplished that gold medal without a domestic professional league in Canada it's absolutely ridiculous. And I wholeheartedly echo your sentiment there about that being one of the greatest accomplishments by any Canadian team, because that is absolutely absurd. One last question for me, Matthew. We really appreciate your time, by the way. I have to get this in, though. Can we just talk about Kyle Larin for a minute and just what he's been able to do? Because he's been on an absolute tear, not only for Canada, but in Turkey as well. How good has this guy gotten? And do you think there's a move in the cards, perhaps a bigger club now that he's been able to have so much success?
Really a career that's come back from the dead. I mean, when you think about where his career was, 24 months ago, I remember speaking to Kyle about this, and John Herdman, and John Herdman was saying, he and it happens with some players, adding structure to their lives, and Kyle becoming a father of twins and bringing his family to Turkey. Sometimes that's all it takes. Like sometimes, like it takes a moment where you're like, okay, like this matters now, and I have things to play for, and you can see his confidence, his desire always to get in front of goal, to see the way that he gets upset at himself and he doesn't convert chances, to see the respect that he has from someone like Alphonso Davies, who's, sends those balls into Robert Lewandowski, on a weekly basis, and yet he sees Kyle Larin in the same light as his teammate. That says a lot. And to know that this isn't the end for Kyle Larin. I mean, listen, the Turkish Super League is certainly not top league, but right up there in the second tier of European leagues. And their accomplishment last year was to win the double is awesome. And to play in a league like that, where of all the leagues in Europe, and you guys can tell me if you think differently, it is probably the closest to the shithousery of CONCACAF and
probably
like closest to the Argentina first division. Like when if anyone's ever watched a Fenerbahce Galatasaray game, I mean, it's just like you talk about bags of pee. I mean, these like I'm a Manchester United fan, and like we suck.
Glory.
We suck going to Turkey, and it's just the way it is. But having said all that, like to see him thrive in that kind of league, to see him thrive, especially alongside Atiba. I mean, where else could he go? I mean, you think about, could he play now, especially the way West Ham is playing under David Moyes, although David Moyes seems to have an absolute love for Croatian players. Like, could we see him play for a team like West Ham? Yep, I can see him playing in the Premier League, no doubt about it. Like, I mean, but there is, you talk about Kyle Larin, what he's doing. I mean, I know it's not part of the question, but I just want to get this in quickly. All hats off to Junior Hoylund. Like Junior Hoylund,
my guy, love him.
The way he's played the last, like, everyone's talking about what Kyle Larin's doing, the goals he's scoring. The work rate that Junior Hoylund's putting in is just like, wow. Like every time he comes off, he has given, like, he's just sweating profusely, and he's given his all. And it's just like, you gotta clap for that man. Like he really has. But he allows for Kyle Larin to just be like, okay, you know what? I just got to go ahead and make sure I'm in the right spot, and I'm getting the balls coming into me, and I've got to convert them. That's my job. Like my job is to score. That's it. I don't need to go back into play. I don't need to go ahead. Don't worry about holding the ball up. Like guys are going to do that. My job is to score, and he's scoring. And that's when a player can have the confidence of saying, I don't have to do all these other things. I can just be me.
Very good point. Yeah.
You can see the benefit that Canada's having right now. And he's by the end of this qualifying window, whatever happens, Kyle Larin is going to be the highest scoring Canadian men's national team player. Like,
what does he need? 2 goals?
Yeah,
that's it.
So that's it. I mean, he's going to be so that's it. I mean, he's going to be. And think about that. I mean, think of where we are. That God bless Dwayne Dear's on his career, but that's how different the metric is now. Like it's no longer like the metric is so different on the men's side. And we are right now a team built on Kyle Larin, Alphonso Davies, and Jonathan David, and there's no shame in that. And when they're all playing at their maximum, I mean, and these aren't the games these games matter, but as we get into later on the other phases of the other match days of this qualifying window, man, it's going to be exciting because these guys, they'll already be in the swing of things in the European season, and when it's really going to matter, when it's a must win, not like these couple games where it's like we need to get some points and everybody's dropping points, so okay, we can stay around. No, we have to win. I want to see what these guys are made of.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in a roundabout way, you just said that the game tomorrow isn't a must-win game, which is a direct counter to every pundit on planet Earth. So, yeah.
It's given where everything is given. I don't think you're looking at Mexico as the team you want to catch. I don't think anybody.
No.
But, and that's okay. I mean, but we're going to, Canada's going to the Azteca, and it's going to be behind closed doors, and that's going to be great, and that's fabulous. I think, not to double back, but tomorrow is crucial. Like tomorrow is tomorrow is crucial because the Honduras game was like, okay, that first half, we get it. You're figuring out what the heck is going on. All the results you needed fell your way. And the second match, all the results you needed fell your way. So don't mess this up. Like you have to win. And even if Alphonso Davies isn't playing, I'm not worried because to find that level of intensity they played against the Mexicans. What was it, a 3-4-3 with Richie Larrea on the left? Like, that's okay. If we don't have if Canada doesn't have Alfonso tomorrow, that's okay. Like, this team has showed that it doesn't need Alfonso all the time. And
we got Junior Hoylett. It's all good.
Yeah, well, not just him, but like it's that midfield of another guy who's playing. His work rate's been amazing. Stefan Eustaquio was like,
oh my god,
like it's like he runs his absolute nuts off. He's the guy just keeps ridiculous. And he gets up in everybody's face, and he's always talking trash, and he doesn't back down. Now, sometimes, like, I don't mind the little niggles away from the ref. That's part of, as you mentioned before, the mind games of what we're playing.
Yep.
But we're okay if we don't have Alfonso tomorrow, because we're going to be at home, and Milan Borjan, God bless him, is the biggest friggin' cheerleader. Just like
yeah. Yeah,
like
his Robbie Van Persie header is maybe the best thing I've seen in the South End of BMO. That it was absolutely incredible. He took a running leap at a corner kick and just headed it away. It was unbelievable.
And it's at the end of it. I'm looking forward to tomorrow, because again, this is just about building the infrastructure around the fans and getting them jacked up. And how could you not, after watching that American game, knowing that we went toe-to-toe with the U.S. in their own backyard? There's no reason why we should not expect to win tomorrow. Full stop.
Yep. Full sellout tickets on StubHub are in the multiple hundreds at this point, well, any remaining tickets. So it's going to be a vibe tomorrow, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the comments are saying that they are even more hyped about Canada soccer than they were before. So I guess this interview went well. Thanks so much for joining us, Matthew.
Love your work, guys.
Always a pleasure, man.
Yeah,
Cheers,
if you need anything, you give me a shout.
Thanks, Matthew.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Cheers.
Have you on.
What a guest.
I'm excited.
Where are you guys sitting tomorrow? What's the vibe tomorrow?
I'm 113. I was 117 last time. I'm 113 this time. And if karma works, that means that all the flags and everybody is going to be in 117 this time, because I was staring at all
see you there, buddy.
Nice.
I gave up my seat in the press box because of the vibe there at Biglefield. I'm like, there's no way I can do this again. I needed to be in that crowd. So I gave up my seat in the press box, got tickets, and 113, Jeff. I will see you there.
Amazing.
I'll be the guy losing his voice, because it is going to be a spectacle.
It is. It's absolutely going to be a spectacle. I'm very, very, very excited.
Yeah, well, there's so many directions we can go in after that.
I wanted to bring up one thing that Will Dunn asked, which is it still closed doors? Are we sure that the Azteca game is going to be closed doors at this point?
I thought it wasn't, but I'm not going to say for sure.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah, okay. I'm not going to say for sure until it's confirmed, but I thought it was.
I mean, it should be.
That penalty got reduced to 1 game.
Yeah, and that 1 game was pawned off to the under 8s or some absolute BS.
I wanted to bring up a couple of things, I guess. Then one of the things that I thought was interesting that Matthew said was just the Tejan Buchanan scoring against Mexico, and then the cha-ching symbol, because that has not been the case for Canada players in the past, that they've been able to raise their stock while playing the Canadian jersey. This is to go back a couple of years, but I remember Marcus Haber, when he's trying to sign for clubs in the lower level of England or in Scotland as well. Like, clubs don't want you because they know you're going to have to go away and play for Canada internationally every window, and like that takes away from what they're doing. And some of those clubs don't even take international breaks in the lower levels of England. So that's fascinating now, and exciting that pulling on that red shirt can actually raise your stock in a way that it hasn't, certainly in the past.
Who was our guest last week? Sorry, slipping my mind right now.
Alex Gongue-Huzik.
Alex Gongue-Huzik.
He made a fantastic point, and that was that Alistair Johnston, and how his coach is now telling him, great job. Was that Alex who said that? Someone said that.
Yeah.
But it was in it.
He comes back to Nashville.
Oh
and
yeah,
his
you
coach
guys
is
pointed that exactly.
You're playing better. every time you come back, you're a better player. Something along
exactly.
those
And now guys want to send their players now to the Canadian men's national team because of the infrastructure again that John Herdman has in place. And man, I know we give him kudos quite often, but I need to say it again. John Herdman, like what a job he has done and he continues to do with this men's national team. What a job he did with the women's national team.
Yep.
This guy is an absolute gem for the Canada soccer organization. And I'm just excited to see like where we head next. What another innovative tactic he has up his mind, or up his sleeve, or what motivating speech he has to say next. Because literally, he checks all the boxes that you want in a head coach.
You raise an interesting point because I was getting hives with the micromanaging in the U.S. men's. I mean, it worked. But the constant formation shifts, from a 5-4-1 to a 3-5-2 to a 4-5-2, it might have just been Stephen Caldwell mentioning it every time it happened that gave me highs. But it felt, again, let me preface, it worked. But it did feel a little bit like galaxy braining, a little bit of what Pep does in Champions League. And I'm pleased that didn't happen. Because if there is one knock against cerebral coaches is sometimes they overthink things. There's been a tendency for people looking at the lineups when they drop, especially over the last 3 games, to sort of posit that for Herdman and his tactics that he's overthinking. But luckily we're sitting pretty. Conversely, getting back to what I was saying to Mitch, we're being overtly positive about 2 points out of 6 on the table.
That's what I was going to ask. On a macro level. Like, how do we feel about that 2 points, Jeff? Because go ahead, you were going to get into it there. How do we feel about that?
Okay. I think if we had, I called them a 6-6 pivot, you called them a 8-8 pivot, but I think if Oso was on the field instead of Atiba for some of that Honduras game, we may have pulled the 3 points. I think Mitch said it best. If Cava was on the field instead of Kyle Larin for the U.S. game, maybe a few of those crosses into the box from Alfonso and Tejan end up in the back of the net. I think Mitch said Cava's more inclined to finish his runs than Larin is. Is that the hindsight being 2020, or is that bad management?
Larin came off.
No, I mean
and stuff.
Well, okay, the Fonzie balls, whatever, the crosses.
Yeah, it was also someone else who made that point. But
oh, really? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think you're the smartest person in the world, Mitch. I just
clearly, I'm getting a bunch of good stuff attributed to it.
But no, I mean, I thought that point was interesting that, if Cava's only good for 30 minutes, right? Had he been subbed on in the U.S. game, would we have seen a different result? I don't know.
That's tough to say because it was Jonathan David who was subbed on, and Jonathan David's a pretty damn good striker. I don't think anyone's choosing Cavallini over Jonathan David to come on there.
Fair.
But you didn't answer the question, Jeff. How do you feel about 2 points?
I mean,
2 games.
Listen, when the game ended the Honduras game ended, I felt crappy, and then I looked at FootMob and I saw the other scores, and I felt a lot better. Right, we got a bit of a mulligan out of that game. A lot of people say that draw felt like a win with the U.S. men's national team. It didn't. It felt like one away point, which is worth a golf clap, but not resounding high fives all around. And then you see the other results, and you're like, okay, we're still in it. I think
very much so.
We need to, must win. Blah blah blah. I want a full 3 points in this cycle. If anything, because then when we go for a break, we're not, I'm so biased because we celebrated TFC's undefeated streak that was actually just a whole bunch of 1-1 draws that gave us all gray hairs, right? And we were doing shows about, well, at least we didn't lose, and I really don't want that to happen with the Canadian men's national team. And I think for confidence, we need to rock some 3 points, because correct me if I'm wrong, the next cycle is a lot of more away games than home games, correct? if not all of
yeah,
the games.
naturally.
Next cycle is very tricky. You've got Mexico and Jamaica away, and then Panama at home. So I think it's like, I don't even think you can talk about the 2 points without the context of the El Salvador game, right? Like that's the one that looms large at this point. You need 3 points in that, and then I think it's a fairly successful window. Not necessarily 100% because of what Canada did this window. Like, I do think leaving points on the table against Honduras is a big disappointment and isn't a good sign, but.
And we may rue it later.
Out.
Yeah.
Pardon?
We may rue that later. We may rue those 2 points.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But you get bailed out in a big way by the fact that almost every team Alex listed last week as being Canada's competition for that 3-4 spot dropped major points between Costa Rica losing and drawing, between, Honduras picking up 2 draws, Jamaica being pretty awful so far. So, and we'll see what Panama continues to do, because they've been pretty impressive thus far. So all of a sudden,
Cooper.
Yeah, all of a sudden, people are these teams that Canada's competing with are starting to drop points against each other, and that opens it up for Canada. So obviously, 5 points this window would be pretty solid given the context of everything else. 5 points next window, and you're almost there. Like that's that would be massive. So it's all in context, kind of in terms of the points and results. And again, that just means tomorrow is absolutely massive.
Massive. So massive.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And El Salvador has proven to be a tough side to break down. Obviously, they haven't conceded a goal in their first 2 matches so far.
Yeah,
but guys,
9 clean sheets in their last 12.
Come on,
Devane called them, guys. Yeah, Devane called them El Salvador on a football pod this morning, and I thought it was hilarious. El Salvador. They're a very young team, and their forward core is not impressive at all. I mean, if you look at their caps and goals, both for the national side and their club side, not so good. But I mean, these games aren't won on paper. I think that's what we learned in the Honduras game. This game is won by grit and luck and shenanigans and all the other sort of intangibles turns this thing. Yeah, I'm super excited. My question is what's our starting lineup? What's our starting 11?
That's a good question, and kind of I want to just make a point before we answer that, and it kind of wraps into that question. And even just looking back at the U.S. game, my biggest takeaway, I guess, from these first 2 games is just how much the goalposts have moved for this Canadian men's national team. Like the moment when you're bringing on those substitutions, Jonathan David, Tajon Buchanan, those guys in the 65th minute off the bench after tying the game against the Americans, holding the Americans to 1-1, and then you're able to go to your bench and bring on players of that caliber. Like that to me just shows just how much this program is growing. And Ivan put a comment in the chat where he was saying, and this is something I actually completely disagree with. He was saying Herman was definitely settling in both games. He was happy with a point in each game. I'm happy we got 2 points, but feel like could have been 1.
Did you see him at the end of the games? He was pissed.
John Herman actually echoed that exact sentiment you said at the end there, Ivan, where he said he felt like they could have won the game against the U.S. He said it was a game that would keep him up at nights.
Yeah, for nights. And like he said, it would haunt him for days. Yeah, he was pissed.
Would we have ever had that conversation 4 years ago on a road game? We were dreaming about a World Cup qualifier in the final stage against the U.S. on the road, let alone being able to go down there and pick up a point. Like the fact that the goalposts are moving so much in so little, it just, as Matthew said, like we just have to enjoy this right now and take this all in, because in just a few years, God, it's gonna be an absolute like I said this before, a spectacle, but like that even doesn't even do it justice to how much this is going to grow, and how, we talk about this all the time, that Footy Talks event with Alphonso Davies just 2 years ago, where you could actually get a spot in the rec room and, be able to chat with Alphonso Davies. Like there's no chance that's
further and further away. Again. My friend Gavin said it to me on the night. He said, enjoy this, take a mental picture. This will never, ever happen again. And he couldn't have been more prescient.
In that same anecdote, Jeff, that's literally what we're living through right now. Like we talk about tickets, at times being available last week's game against Honduras. I'm imagining in a year's time, 2 years' time, those tickets are going to sell out, just like that.
Your $20 Voyagers membership pays for itself already, guys. Yeah.
There you go. Exactly. Shout out the Voyagers. So I'm just super excited about where we're heading, and like circling back to your question there, Jeff. I'm not even worried about what type of lineup Canada kind of rolls out there, because they have players who are capable of stepping up and, doing what's asked. They have so much depth on that roster that someone like a Jonathan Osorio is struggling to get minutes. Someone who's been so essential to this team was struggling to get minutes in this team.
Has Mr. Full Tuck? Yeah, he hasn't, because he hasn't seen a minute of gameplay at this point. And
for what is it, Sam Adekugbe, for him to come in and play such a strong role on
out of his mind. It was lights out.
I don't know if anyone would have predicted that he would have started that match, because of the depth that we have on both sides at fullback. It's just it's fantastic time now to be a Canadian soccer supporter.
Where's ZBG? He's amazing, and he's not even on the roster. It's craziness. It's absolute craziness. The reason I asked the lineup question is because I don't think you can start Tajon and Richie at the same time, because it's a red card attraction device. And I think Mitch, I'm pretty sure Mitch, you did say this, but maybe not. Maybe let's go for 3. But you said we're going to get red cards anyway at this game. There'll be red cards for the Honduras game. Was it you?
Maybe. No, I don't think so. So I think you went 3 for 3 with attributing things to me that I didn't say. But
I actually have screen caps, but I didn't want to look at them. So
fair enough.
Yeah, if Davies is not available to play hypothetically because of the knock that he picked up, I think you do have to start both Richie Larea and Tajon Buchanan, Jeff.
Richie is very close to red card, man at this point, and Tajon, that penalty that he gave up was rookie mistake, so I'm just worried about that.
Yeah, I personally think the Richie Larea thing, that's just and Matthew talked about it. That's sort of the edge that he plays with, and in CONCACAF, you kind of need that edge. There are times where he absolutely crosses the line, and I think some of the stuff that he does is pretty petty and pretty unnecessary, and not only for Canada but for TFC as well. But at the same time, Richie Larea balled out against the U.S. He was an absolute,
and Honduras too, honestly,
and Honduras as well.
Players in that game.
He's a player who's an absolute game breaker for this men's national team. And same thing with Tajon Buchanan. Tajon Buchanan's, what was it? Probably he has less than 10 senior caps for this men's national team. These are growing pains that are just naturally gonna come. He jumped in a stupid challenge. I'm not gonna penalize him for the rest of the tournament because he made that one stupid challenge. So, he does way more positive than he does negative for this men's national team. And
very good
again,
point,
I did like him coming off the bench though, Jeff. I did enjoy the
holy crap. That was
he could turn a tide just like that. Right?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how else they line up. I think Hutchinson probably draws back in if he's still with the team, just because he didn't play against the U.S. So I imagine that'll happen.
Didn't start against the U.S. He didn't
start against the U.S.
Oh, did he? He
yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I imagine he'll probably line up top. Interesting to see if Cavallini will get some minutes because he rejoined the squad early. I'm wondering what his status is, but there's so much depth up top right now that it'll probably be hard pressed for him to get minutes. Jonathan David probably gets back into the starting 11. I guess it's a good problem to have because we talk about so many potential opportunities, and that just speaks to the volumes of depth that this team has. And your guess right now is as good as mine, but like I said, I'm not worried whatsoever.
Yeah,
there's. I think my biggest question going into this final game, and I can't believe I'm even saying this though, is about Canada's offense and their finishing ability. Because, for as much as we were talking going into this cycle and into the past couple of years about the defensive side of this team and how that's really their Achilles heel, there's been 2 pretty solid defensive performances, honestly.
Agreed.
like you can extend that back to the Gold Cup. Like the defensive performances in the Gold Cup were excellent. Canada's only scored 5 goals in the past 5 games, and the underlying numbers suggest they've been pretty unlucky. I think they have closer to 8 to 9 expected goals. So
yeah.
In that regard, and your eyes can tell you that too. They've missed some pretty good chances in both those games. Richie Larea skying late against Honduras. Kyle had a couple of good chances. They got in good positions against the U.S. But with that being said, that's the big question here. Can they break down what's going to be a defensive, resolute El Salvador side? And can some of these guys who we know can score? I mean, obviously Laren's been doing it, but your Jonathan David, who hasn't scored this window, and this is his longest time without a goal for Canada ever, which is like 4 games. So it's hard to go too crazy on him for that. But you need those guys to show up and score big goals in this game, and that's really what I'll be looking for. Is what different offensive ideas can they do if once again El Salvador sits in a low block and really just absorbs all this pressure that Canada's putting on them? And again, how can that BMO Field crowd really help them and bring them forward during those tough moments?
I think BMO is going to help us because we've been seeing international Zavs. Now we're going to see TFC Zavs, which means probably had to be said. I'm sorry, Eric.
Aaron's in the chat. Can Jonathan David break down Eric Zavaleta? He's gonna say yes.
Gonna say yes.
Yes there, but probably. But you never know, man. Like Zavs,
you never know.
We talked about this.
CONCACAF.
We talked about this last week. It's just Eric Zavaleta, international Eric Zavaleta. Like, just find a way to get him, as Alex said, in an El Salvador shirt for playing for TFC, because this guy appears to be like a different breed. Mitch, what you said, if they set up in that low block against Canada, then I think it is imperative that we do get a number 10 on the pitch to start that match. I think we need to get someone in between the line there that can sort of penetrate that defense, play that final ball into a David or a Laren, and whether that's Junior Hoylett or Jonathan Osorio, get someone like that into the match just so they can be another option there in sort of that high part of the park. I think that's all from me there. I'm just super excited for tomorrow. I think it's like I said, it's going to be a completely different vibe than you're used to if you're heading down to BMO Field for the first time to check out a national team match. Man, it was a completely different vibe than going to TFC games. Like, I can't even express how lively that crowd was, and I'm looking forward to it tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Sorry, I said if El Salvador plays in a low block, I meant when El Salvador plays in a low block. I think we all know what's coming.
I just assumed you said when, or you meant
if they're gonna they're playing a 4-3-3 with inverted wingers, guys. What are you talking about?
Should we
hop on to the last thing? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Actually, no. Yeah. Let's at least briefly mention that Toronto FC is back in action on Saturday against FC Cincinnati. I think earlier in the season when they lost to Cincinnati, that's when we really knew that things had gone all the way off the rails. So a chance to at least maybe pull something back here. But my question that I put in the chat is
good question.
In the question is, what, if anything, are we looking forward to for the next little bit for Toronto FC other than the cider bar, Jeff?
A41 kit, Unity kit. What's it going to be, guys? Black Sox. No, I'm looking forward to. My last column was let's play the kids, and then we did for TFC2, and it was a disaster. So I don't entirely know what I want anymore. I think we need to see some kids. I still think that. I still think we need to at least close the book on some of these prospects for good or bad. As unfair as that is to put their whole worth to the team up on the chopping block on the back of meaningless games. And
Jeff, I take issue with that, because how can you close the book on a kid who's like 19 years old?
I mean, like my counter is, how long can you keep it open in a professional context, right? It's with the changeover that we've got coming. how many of these prospects or potentials or diamonds in the rough or unpolished gems can we hold on to going forward? Or is there even a number? I just think that
there's 30 spots on the roster.
Yeah.
Right. And one of them is Erickson Gallardo.
If you're talking about Erickson Gallardo, that's a different conversation. I'm not.
No. I brought him.
The Jaden Nelsons, the Jaquil Marcerutis, like players of that caliber. Like, there's no way that you can define the rest of their career in the next 2 months. That's what I take issue with. Is that
Okay, well then
I don't know if there are prospects we have to close the door on.
Well then, what are we doing for the next 12 games? Showing up for our participation medal? Like, what's the goal here? If it isn't,
I think getting some of them game experiences absolutely has to be a priority.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. I don't think it's necessarily an assessment period for them. More so as an opportunity to just get their feet wet, and something they haven't been able to do with Toronto FC in general. It's been so hard to get minutes as a young kid coming through the system right now for the first team, and to be put into an opportunity, as you kind of alluded to at the beginning there, Jeff, to succeed as well. And if you put them on the field again with a Soteldo, a Pozuelo, players of that caliber, instead of throwing a full team of youngsters out there, you're more likely to succeed as opposed to happening what happened with TFC too. That being said, it's not about succeeding or not for me. It's just about getting some of these kids minutes, because the reality is there's nothing left on the line for TFC this season.
So what
to play for? Championship,
yeah, exactly.
Other than the Canadian Championship,
that's something I'm looking forward to. But Jeff, I kind of wanted to build on what Mike was saying. Like, we've been talking so much about the different ways players are evaluated in MLS based on their roster position, be that designated player, TAM, that sort of thing. Like, these young guys take up almost nothing on your salary cap budget. They take up very or nothing if they're homegrown players. Like, they aren't even counted against salary. So these are guys you can just have around and keep for a while to see how they develop and turn out. And again, I don't think you need to make an assessment on all of these guys over the next couple of months, because look at a guy like Alistair Johnson, who at 19 or whatever was playing League One Ontario and now is shutting down Christian Pulisic for the Canadian men's national team. Like players just develop in such different ways, and that's why it is, even if
get him minutes. Get him minutes. No check or minus. No check sheet. But get him minutes. See what happens, and then evaluate at the end of the season. Is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's probably closer to what TFC are thinking. And then someone like, I don't know, let's say Noble Okello, for instance, there, Jeff, just to kind of build on that point. Noble Okello's biggest asset is not his ability to play right now, but it's his frame. And it's a frame that he's going to grow into, right? And his ability to move around in that frame. He also has a great touch, but his ability to play soccer right now is not his strictly, within the game, is not his best asset. Right. So I'm excited to see what Noble Okello looks like in 3 years, because to me, that's really the player that TFC are kind of trying to build towards, as opposed to a guy who's 19 years old and could hypothetically make an impact on the game right now. So that's why I'm saying
next game.
yeah. I mean, oh yeah, true. Because of the red card, he won't be there next game. So yeah, I think what's next for TFC? That's really the $1 million question. Like, is this a time where you start weeding Michael Bradley out of the lineup? Is this you start cutting his minutes? Is that the time now? Like, who else's minutes do you cut? Omar Gonzalez's minutes potentially. Do you start to cut his minutes? Who else is in that boat there
Jeff,
for you guys?
Yes, you do. Jeff was fully in agreement with that one.
Is there anyone else's minutes that you'd think about cutting?
I mean, there's a lot of Marky Delgado hate going around. Marky, Marco, Mark. And I've always been aghast at that, because I think he's so underappreciated. I mean, we have an award named after him for the most underrated TFC player. And once again, he wins it most years because he's just that important. So the idea that Mark Delgado is not long for this world in a TFC shirt makes me crazy. But I think everything has to be on the table. I mean, again, this is why we've had so much trouble talking about TFC right now, is how much can you prepare for the future with an interim manager, right? Like, how much identity can you establish? How much identity should you establish? How much gray matter are you going to devote to these things that will undoubtedly change once the season is over? And it puts an asterisk on everything, right? Like, if you're cutting Michael's minutes for the next 12 games, does that necessarily mean that the next gaffer is going to do it for the beginning of the next season? If you're
Bob Bradley comes in and just
Shout out.
I mean, Bob Bradley's already going to get hired for the U.S. men's national team if Berhalter doesn't win Honduras.
Probably by next game, yeah.
when they light him on fire, because oh my God, U.S. men's national team Twitter. I think it's so weird because we're in for the chaos of the bad years, right? We're in for the rudderless ship of the bad years. This is what we're in for. I can't see it happening any other way. So we're grasping at straws in terms of what's going to give us value, for what's going to give us bang for our buck, what's going to inspire us towards the next season. And I don't know what it is. Hopefully it's a couple Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy screamers that keep us excited going into the off season, right?
I don't know I don't know if that's realistic. Like, has he hit a screamer? Like, maybe one when he was like 14, like the U17 team or something like that.
Okay, then a Jordan Peruzza screamer or whatever the case may be. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough to navigate this.
We're being yelled at, by the way, in the chat too.
I know. That's why I keep losing my train of thought.
To calm down, man. Like, what do you want us to say? Like, the team is in last place. This is one of the worst seasons I've ever witnessed. Not only probably around MLS in general. This is a team with the highest payroll in Major League Soccer, and they're in dead last. As you're saying in the chat there, yes, it's very tough for the young players, absolutely. But the reality
they're young
is,
players.
The reality is, none of them have been given a fair opportunity, which we absolutely have been saying. And they're put into very tough positions, and that's why we're saying let's not evaluate the young players based on these next couple of games. Let's give them a fair sample size, and let's not make any yes or no decisions based on this season. Like, the reality is, we want to get them playing time. We want to give the young players playing time, and for them to succeed or not succeed, that's irrelevant. They just need to get minutes at this point to be put into an environment where they have an opportunity to I don't want to say succeed, but
show their
have
worth.
An opportunity to show
show their wares. Yep. Show their
meaningful
bona fides.
minutes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that has to be the goal. And unfortunately it's in a system that's in limbo right now, right? Like it unfortunately. And that's my problem, is that I mean, I wish I had your positivity they will succeed. At the end of the day, we've been sitting on the same crock of Academy kids for a couple of seasons, through no fault of their own, but they're not entirely lighting the world on fire. So that level of positivity is, I don't know.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love to see it, but I can't go there with you.
I believe in the kids. Like, I do believe in the young guns, and I've been stressing it for a while now. This season, however, did them no favors. Absolutely no favors, which is super. Aside from Ralph Priso, just maybe Noble Okello. Was there a youngster that we can undoubtedly say took major strides this year?
Nope.
I mean, technically Luke Singh, just because he got minutes, but
but I had faith in Luke Singh, even before he signed a first team deal with TFC, and it was good that he did get those minutes. But by the end of the those season,
minutes.
He wasn't looking like the same Luke Singh that started the year, and that's what I'm trying to get at. Is these guys are not being put in good positions to succeed, and is there a player that we can undoubtedly say besides Ralph Priso that got tremendously better? I thought Jacob Schaffelberg would be that guy, but then he just, as soon as Perez came in, he dropped out of the the 11.
Yeah, he dropped off the face.
Jaden Nelson has. I'm so disappointed in the, the direction that the club is heading with Jaden Nelson.
Yeah.
Because I think he's a player that just oozes talent. He's been getting opportunities in the past, and that just went away.
Yep.
We've seen Jaquil Marshall-Rudy like 1, maybe 2 times this season, sparsely.
Yeah.
Like it's not looking good for the TFC Young Guns, but there's an opportunity here, and that's what we're getting at. There's an opportunity here to reinstill that sort of faith, not only for us, but I think more importantly for them.
Absolutely. Without question.
Yeah, and rolling the 11 of them out or 8 of them out for TFC2 and having the just get steamrolled, that's not the option either. Like there needs to be something here where there's a balance to get kids minutes and find success, and I hope they find a way.
I agree.
All right, let's wrap things up here because we went way over time. Producer Sophia
always
was
do.
Pumped when we said we'd be wrapping up, and then we went another 15 minutes on TFC. So let's.
How can she be surprised? This is what we do. Yeah.
Out of this, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 60 episodes of the show. We haven't gotten any better at wrapping things up early. We've probably gotten worse, in fact. But
we've gotten worse. We used to go 45 minutes, but we're so much worse now. Anyway.
Absolutely. Anyway, thank you to Matthew Scianitti for making his show debut. That was great. A lot of good insight there into the Canadian men's national team. Thanks as always so much to producer Sophia for bearing with us and all she does for us behind the scenes, to Kevin and Edwin as well from the team. And thanks as always for listening and interacting. We always appreciate it. On behalf of Jeffrey P. Nesker and Michael Singh, I'm Mitchell Tierney. Till next Tuesday.
See you guys.